Hello, welcome to my first video here for Matner's movie musings. Um, for you, those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Matner, um, and for those of you who do know me, know that I'm a huge movie buff and love watching movies, and I've been talking about doing a video like this for a very long time, and so I finally just decided to get it over with and go ahead and do one. My biggest problem was just trying to come up with a where to start, and so I figured I'd just go with just talking a little bit about myself and as far as movies, talking about some of my favorite movies and movie experiences over the years. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get started. I basically just compiled a list of. It started out as just I was going to do a top 10 list, and anybody who loves movies knows how difficult it is to just compile 10 movies. I mean, lists are pretty arbitrary anyways, but they're just a fun way of just kind of letting people know your taste and you know the movies that you kind of movies you like. So anyways, because a lot of people ask me like, what's your favorite movie, which is obviously impossible to come up with one. But the answer that I usually give is Goodfellas, which is the start of my list here. Which, by the way, I was not able to keep at 10. I came up with a total of 25 movies that wouldn't say define me, but that define my taste or have just impacted me throughout the years, from childhood to now. So anyway, so Goodfellas. I mean, that's just. I mean, it is a great film, and probably definitely one of my favorites. And then I mean, it is just so well done. The cinematography is great, but I mean, just the acting, just not even from a filmmaking point of view, it's just a great movie that anybody watching it will just feel the greatness from it. Next, I've got Pulp Fiction, which is my second answer. It's easily tied for first there, but like I said, I don't really have a specific favorite movie of all time. Because I mean, it's so hard to define the scope of over 100 years of movies to pick one that you love. But anyways, moving along here. So yeah, so Pulp Fiction, which is just, I mean, that came along. I was probably about 13 when I saw that movie, and it just completely blew me away, like everybody. But I mean, especially at that age, all the movies that I had seen were pretty, straightforward. Just, I mean, just not that, I don't know, crazy. Just the way Tarantino just deconstructed the whole idea of what a movie could do, just blew me away. And by the way, this list just kind of zooms all over the place, so I apologize. I didn't really organize it because I just kind of, I mean, this is just where my mind went as I was making this list. So going from Pulp Fiction, I go back to Back to the Future, which is a big film for me when I was younger. I mean, I can't count how many times I watched this movie. I mean, I'm a big fan of all three of the films. My favorite to watch is probably the second one, just because the future, and it's just a more visually stimulating movie, but obviously, I mean, my favorite is the first one. I mean, it's got a much better story. I mean, it's just a more contained story. But I mean, I was a huge Michael J. Fox fan for a long time, and then and Christopher Lloyd in that movie, The Doc, and just I mean, I was probably 7 or 8. When I think 7 when I really started watching that movie, and it was just cool, like, to have a scientist, an older scientist friend. I mean, it's kind of creepy, actually, if you think about it, but for me, I just thought it would be really cool to, have that, weird guy that, you would share his weird inventions with you and all that. And of course, skateboarding. I was big into skateboarding, and so that was pretty cool. And then next we have Terminator 2, which was another game changer for me. I think I was like 10 when I saw that, and I was a big Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, watching all of his movies, and I loved the original Terminator. So I was a huge fan of that growing up, and but yeah, I just remember watching Terminator 2 for the first time, and just knowing that something changed. Like, it was just a completely different thing. I mean, that was a movie that really bridged the gap between my childhood and my adulthood, or growing towards my adulthood in my teenage years. Just because it was a popcorn fun action movie, which at the time there was a bunch of Steven Seagal and all those people, and I was really into those movies. And but I mean, this was way more than that. There was, I mean, obviously a much more in-depth story. The special effects were just mind-blowing. I mean, of course, at 10, that was what really struck me as just, oh my goodness, like, how did they do that? Like the T-1000 and the liquid metal and all this crazy stuff. But I mean, also just the story. I remember being moved in the end in a way that I hadn't before, because I wasn't really watching a lot of serious movies yet. And so, of course, like, my movies like Old Yeller or Bambi, or whatever, those the normal children's staples were the closest I'd gotten to some sort of emotional reaction to a movie, but never like this. Never really having invested so much into a character. And of course, now looking at it, it's the fact that James Cameron was able to make that that robot character into so human, and a testament to Schwarzenegger as well, of course. But anyway, so that was a very important movie. And then next, another one, going back a few years, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was another just mind-blowing movie, which, of course, I mean, I was like 7 when I saw that. I mean, I remember my dad took me to see that in the theater, which is a big thing, because I didn't really go to get to see many movies in the theater, so that in itself was just a major event. But then, of course, the movie itself was just so fantastic. And I mean, I don't think, like I said, seeing it at 7, I don't think I really realized how epic that was. That that there were people with cartoons. I mean, I'm sure I did, to the extent that I'd never seen actual human beings and cartoons together. I mean, I guess Mary Poppins and whatever, but never really in that, obviously, to that extent. But I mean, I was into movies enough that I was into the behind the scenes stuff, and I remember reading articles and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I was in tune with the importance or whatever of that movie as a milestone for movies, but also just how entertaining it was. I mean, it was at 7 for a 7-year-old. It was just a very entertaining, fun movie. And of course, it wasn't until several years later, watching it again, probably at 16, that I really because by then I'd seen more, because I wasn't really familiar with film noir at that time, or I hadn't seen a lot of the old detective movies. And so which again, that's how great that movie is. But it plays on several different levels to different people. Movie lovers are going to look at it in a different way. Kids, obviously, in a different way. Quote unquote normal adults, whatever. Not in tune with the history of movies or whatever. Are going to see it in a different way, but they're all going to enjoy it. I mean, it's a very relatable or accessible story and movie to enjoy. Next is Fight Club, which was just a movie that I was like 18 when I saw that movie, and so I've been watching movies for quite a while at that point, and but had never seen anything like that. I just remember walking out of the theater and just, mind blown, as everybody was. But not just the story, the whole, twist ending, which that was a big part of it. But just the style of it, just the way, it really introduced me to David Fincher. Of course, I'd seen Seven and The Game, and was already, really enjoyed those movies. But that was the movie that really, just his visual style and camera choices and camera location and shot choices and stuff, just really, it was just, I'd never seen anything like it. And I still have yet to. I still watch that movie and am blown away by just how crazy that movie is, and the fact that it was made in the first place just blows my mind. It's just crazy. Next is Clerks, which is a Kevin Smith movie, which I've grown to love Kevin Smith over the years. It actually wasn't the first Kevin Smith movie I saw, but it's really the movie that really made me fall in love with Kevin Smith. Obviously it's the epitome of his style, and I just had never really seen anything like it. It was like watching somebody's home movie, but somebody who says a lot of really cool things and really funny stuff and really well written dialogue, which is what he's good at. And because for me, I'd be happy just to watch people talk as long as they're saying something interesting. And Kevin Smith is one of the most, him and Tarantino came out around the same time and are two of the most interesting screenwriters. Kevin Smith were writing dialogue that sounds like we talk, it sounded like me and my friends when we would hang out, but if we actually took the time to think of really smart ways to say what we wanted to say, and hilarious movie. And it just that was a movie that really really affected me in the sense that it changed how I looked at comedies. Next I've got Aladdin. Not really anything special necessarily. It just happens to be my favorite Disney movie, and I remember seeing it several times in the theater going back. I think I saw it 8 times. Love Robin Williams, and I guess up to that point really hadn't seen a lot of Disney movies that had a male character as the lead. So, growing up with 2 sisters, watched a lot of the princesses and stuff, and was a big fan of the Disney movie Robin Hood. Growing up, watched that ad nauseum, till my parents couldn't stand it anymore. But really, other than that, this was the first Disney movie where there was a male lead, and I felt more in relation to the film. It might not necessarily be as good of a movie as Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast, but definitely my personal favorite. Next, another staple from my childhood, Little Shop of Horrors, which is a great mix of genres. Again, Never seen anything like it. Um, Probably the first musical I ever saw, which I come to really love musicals. Um, but it's just a mix of horror and comedy, um, and just done really well with a lot of great comedic actors, and just a lot of fun. Which leads next, Ghostbusters, another game changer at the time. Of course, I didn't see it upon release. I was about 3. I don't think I saw it until I was probably about 6. But again, just a really funny movie, but also great effects and just a great story. Just an extremely smart movie. That's another one of those. Watching years later, obviously I appreciate even more than I did then. Next, we have Unforgiven. Not a big fan of westerns. Not even necessarily big on Clint Eastwood, but just for some reason, I really enjoyed that movie. I really, I don't know. That's one I can't really explain what makes it different from other westerns, and I haven't really seen a lot of westerns. I just, I don't know. There was just something about the characterization and the grittiness of it. It felt more real than most of the other westerns. I didn't care about a bunch of cattle drivers or um, even the lone gunmen and all that stuff. It just never really appealed to me. It just I always found them rather boring. The John Wayne movies and stuff. I just never really could get into it. But and maybe it was just that it was more clean cut and whatnot, and that was boring to me. Whereas Eastwood's anti-hero is much more interesting and had more depth. So next, The Nutty Professor. Always been a huge Eddie Murphy fan. Remember going to see that in the theater, hysterical. Laughed the whole time, and it was just again, that was just something I hadn't really seen up to that point. Eddie Murphy playing all these different characters and really creating specific characters, but it was also very sweet, just a very fun movie that I really enjoyed. Next, we have The Untouchables, which another movie I've seen so many times. Just really great written script by David Mamet, directed by Brian De Palma, who's another one of my favorite directors, and it was just another movie that on a just basic level, it was just a fun action movie, but also just I don't know. There was just a lot of drama and just a lot of conflict in the film that really just always made me I always really just enjoyed it. And then next, Blue Velvet, which is just another one of those just mind-blowing movies that I watch over and over just to really try to understand it, because as with any David Lynch movie, it doesn't really offer itself to easy interpretation. But I haven't seen it a whole lot of times, maybe probably a handful of times, but each time it's a different experience. Discover different things about it, maybe see it in a completely different way. But it's just a trip, and if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. It's not for all tastes, but if you have a twisted sense of humor and you don't mind vulgarity and just just check it out for yourself, and definitely recommend it. Next, Princess Bride, another staple from my childhood. Not really much to say about it. I'm sure most of you have seen it. It's just a fun fairy tale that's unlike any other fairy tale. It's just got a lot of great, fun, colorful characters, and just a very twisty plot there. Well, not a twisty plot, but just a lot of it takes a lot of unexpected turns. It's not just your basic happily ever after type tale. Like there's a lot of dark and twisted turns in it. So I just remember watching that as a kid and really being excited. I'm always excited by seeing something new, and that definitely was very original. Next, Out of Sight. This is probably one of the most obscure movies on my list, and I just remember seeing that movie, and it's kind of done in a sort of a Pulp Fiction-y way where the timeline kind of splits off. But I think what really appealed to me was just the characters. It's based on an Elmore Leonard book, who I'd never heard of at the time. Since seeing this movie, I've read almost all of his books. I'm a huge Elmore Leonard fan. Anyway, he writes a lot of crime stories. He actually wrote the story which Tarantino's Jackie Brown is based on. It's got George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez, and George Clooney is a bank robber. Jennifer Lopez is an FBI agent, and they're not even really together most of the movie. But the movie is basically about their romance, this romance that's burning between them, but separately. Like we see each of them, how the other person is affecting them as they go about their daily lives. As she's like trying to track him down, and as he's trying to pull off this other heist, and it's a very exciting movie that kind of takes that genre and twists it around, and following with the theme of a lot of these movies on the list. It's something I'd never seen before, at least seen done in that way, and so it really excited me, and I've enjoyed that movie ever since. I've seen it several times, and it's something I could watch over and over. Next, we have Donnie Brasco, which is a great movie with Johnny Depp and Al Pacino. It's kind of a new take on an old story. It's about the mob, and Johnny Depp plays an FBI agent who goes undercover as a low-level mobster or whatever, and Al Pacino plays the guy who, been in the mob for a long time, hasn't really caught a break, looking to, make his way to the top, and kind of takes Johnny Depp's character under his wing. And it's more of a character study, and it's about the relationship. It's almost a love story, a buddy love story type thing. But it's also gritty and exciting, and it's got a lot of the gangster themes, similar to Goodfellas. But in a lot of ways, but also very different. So I really enjoyed that. And then next, Face Off, which huge fan of action movies. Always have been. I even like Michael Bay. You can hate me if you want to, but I'm a huge supporter of Michael Bay. He does what he does, and he does it well. But anyways, Face Off isn't a Michael Bay movie. It's actually done by John Woo, who is a Hong Kong action director. Had made a few American movies. I think this was his third American movie. But again, it was just a movie like nothing I'd ever seen before. And isn't just your basic action movie. It's about so much more. It's about its characters, and the fact that watching these actors kind of play each other and try to, you see it's Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, and Nicolas Cage is actually playing John Travolta, and John Travolta's playing Nicolas Cage. It's just that in itself is just pretty cool to see. But then the plot itself is actually very smart, and the way it's done, great action sequences, just everything about it is just kind of the cultivation of everything that I love in that genre, and seeing it packaged so perfectly with some great acting, great characters, great action sequences all together, just makes for a great film, and another just one of those movies that I go to, I can watch over and over again. Next, we have Field of Dreams, which is a movie that hits a more personal note. Has to do with my father, who played baseball in high school, and had a rocky relationship with his father. So my father really related to this movie, and so I felt a strong connection watching this movie with him. It's a great movie on its own. If you haven't seen it, again, definitely recommend it. It's about a guy who hears a voice. He's an Iowa farmer, has a cornfield. Hears this voice that tells him to build a baseball diamond in the field, and he does it. And then the White Sox, I think, 1919 White Sox, who got in trouble for throwing the World Series. Anyways, they come back to life through the cornfield, and it sounds ridiculous, but it's actually just a really touching, moving film about the love of baseball, but just about being passionate about what you love. And of course, we can all relate to that. So, but again, just for me, it was just a more personal movie about I connected with my dad. I could see, I learned a lot about my dad through this movie, and so for me, it's just a very important film. Next, we have Memento, which again was just something I'd never seen before. Watching a movie, it's about a guy who has this special kind of amnesia, who can only go for about 5 minutes before his brain resets, and so the film kind of plays backwards. So the end is at the beginning, and then it works its way backwards, but in 5-minute increments, so that we see these little things that are happening to him, and then it goes to the previous 5 minutes, and so on and so forth, until it goes till we make it to the end, which is actually the beginning. And actually there's a twist there at the end / beginning. Sounds confusing. It's really not. It's really easy to follow. It's very entertaining. It's actually the first major film from Christopher Nolan, who's gone on to make Inception and Interstellar, and recently Dunkirk. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, again, definitely recommend. Obviously, I recommend all these movies. But next, we have Die Hard, which is my probably honest favorite movie. If I'm saying the movie that I watch the most and that I love to watch the most, it's Die Hard. I mean, it's just such a pleasing film to watch. Love Bruce Willis. Alan Rickman is the villain. I mean, just everything about the movie is perfect. I could go on and on, do a full video on Die Hard, and maybe someday I will. But for now, let's just move on. Next, we have Good Will Hunting, which phenomenal film. Was written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck before anybody knew who they were. This is the movie that put them on the map. It has Robin Williams in his best performance. Everything about this movie was great. It's got great dialogue. Again, this is really the first movie that, no, not the first movie, but this was just a movie that I remember watching it and I knew the story behind it, and it just blew my mind that these guys, who'd acted in a few movies and had never written anything before, were able to come on, basically jumpstart their own careers with this, and for it to be such a great film, just again blew my mind. But I mean, regardless of the backstory, it is just a great film, very moving film, just well written. Definitely one of my favorites. And the next, another somewhat obscure movie, but True Romance, which was written by Quentin Tarantino, but he didn't direct it. With Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette. It's not going to go into all the details about it because it's a semi-complicated story, but basically it's just it's another gritty crime movie, but not like anything told in a completely new and exciting way. And then the last two on my list are just a couple guilty pleasures of mine. First being Joe versus the Volcano, which is probably the most obscure movie on my list. It's an old Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movie, made in like 1990. But I mean, I remember watching this several times, like as a kid, probably 9, 10 years old. I mean, going to the video store and going just specifically to rent this movie for the 10th, 12th, 15th time. I just absolutely love this movie. It's just, it's again, I mean, it's completely unique. It's crazy. It's silly, but it's fun. I mean, it's basically Tom Hanks plays this depressed, sad guy who works in this basement, and he learns that he's dying, and so this old guy comes and hires him to go to this island and jump in a volcano, pays him a bunch of money, and says he's dying anyway. Why not do it in the volcano? And it's his, him journeying to the island, and yeah, it's just weird and silly, like I said, and just like a lot of fun, and again, recommend it. And then lastly, this is my go-to guilty pleasure movie. I can't really defend it in any way other than it's just a lot of fun, and it's Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. Again, seen this movie countless times. Has a lot of cool ideas in it. It's not a great movie. It's it's never, the ideas are never fully realized, but it's got so many great ideas, and it's just so fun and just so entertaining. Lots of action, comedy, and just a lot of fun. So I didn't really plan on this video being this long, so if you stayed around this long, I do appreciate it. But anyways, that's a little bit about me and the movies that I love, and I hope, and I'll definitely be doing more of these soon. So I will see you guys next time.